Hi, it's Isabel, and today I want to talk about my reading journal. So I have always kept track of what I'm reading in some form. The past few years I've done it digitally, but this year I have decided to return to a physical reading journal. And this is just a journal that I had at hand. It's a Leuchtturm, one of those that a lot of kind of bullet journal, reading journal people have. I have bought this a few years back and never really used it, so I've decided to finally put it to good use and put my reading journal in here. I've decided to go back to a physical journal because I really want to get better at actually reviewing the books that I read, and also I just like having some actual lists in my life that are not on my computer or my phone or anywhere. And it also is just so relaxing to do some journaling. So I want to show you the kind of start of the year spreads that I have done for 2021, and also show you kind of what I have prepared and started for the month of January. So starting off, as you can see, I have created a little title page. Nothing fancy, it's just the year that we're in, and some colourful scraps of paper that were inspired by the Pantone colours of the year, which are a yellow and a grey. I didn't have the exact colours, but I just wanted to kind of incorporate that into the title page. And then next to that, I've also made a simple overview where I just write down the page numbers and kind of what spreads that I have done so that I can find them again. It's not really that important with the beginning spreads, but I feel like it might come in handy once I want to go back and kind of find my overview for the months, which I will just write down as I go. Moving on the next page, I have written down some 2021 intentions. So I didn't really want to make goals per se, but there were a few things that I kind of had in mind that I want to focus on. I won't be really sad if I don't achieve these things. A lot of them also aren't really set goals, just as I said, more like intentions. So yeah, I might as well just quickly talk about them. So as you can see, my first reading intention is maybe a bit of a counterintuitive one, but I actually want to read less books. Maybe that needs some explanation. So the past 2 or 3 years, I've always read around 100 books. And while I am quite happy to get through so many books, there were just times where I felt like I read a lot of books without actually really thinking about any of them, and also forgetting quite a lot about them right after I had read them because I read them so quickly. So this year I really wanted to slow down a bit so that I could enjoy the books that I'm reading more, that I can also take some more time to think about them, and I also wanted to give myself time to read some more slow books or also some more big books. As you can see, that is also one of my kind of resolutions later, because I always feel like I'm wasting time when I'm reading a big book because I only get through one book in the time that I could have read, I don't know, 3 books. Which is a stupid mindset, and I just want to change that in 2021. Then my second intention is to write more reviews. That kind of goes hand in hand with the taking more time to actually think about the books that I have read. I do want to just sit down after I've read the book and actually think about what I've just read, kind of reflect on my thoughts on it. And of course I also want to be able to share my thoughts with you guys. I think it would be nice to just also think about the books that I read some more, and also maybe get a bit better at writing reviews, because I don't feel like I'm that good at it, so I feel like I just need to practice that some more. And then my last intention is like the most concrete one, and I came up with like 4 types of books that I felt like I wanted to read more of, and they are non-fiction, Shakespeare plays, big books, and then lastly I would like to reread more books. And the next page is also kind of about that, so I'm going to talk about that more in a second. I just quickly wanted to mention the kind of tracker thingy that I did. So as you can see, my loose goal for non-fiction and Shakespeare and rereads is to read 10 each of those and read 5 big books. what I'm going to do throughout the year is every time I have read one of these books, I'm kind of going to colour in one of these squares and write the book that I've read that fits this category next to it, so that by the end of the year I will hopefully have filled out the whole tracker and I can look back and see which books that I read for like these categories. Then, as I said, I want to reread more books, and what I did last year is I reread quite a big portion of my 2019 favourites. So now I have written down all of my 2020 favourites, and if I reread any of these I can keep track of them on this page. On the bottom I have also left some space to put down any other books that I might reread that are not 2020 favourites. But yeah, as I said, I quite enjoyed rereading 2019's favourites in 2020, so I want to make sure that I also reread some of my 2020 favourites this year. Moving on the next page I have a very simple spread, and it's where I want to keep track of all of the books that I have read in 2021. So I will basically just write down the date when I read it, the title and the author of the book, and the rating that I gave it, and I'm also keeping track of how many books I've read, just so that I always have an overview of what I've read this year. And then I left quite a lot of space to add all of the books as I go along. And then the next spread that I did is a stats page. I haven't filled out all of the months yet. I think I will just do that when I get to them. But as you can see, I've already done it for January and February, and I want to kind of have an overview at the end of how many books I've read, how many pages I've read, how many books I've bought. And then I also want to keep track of how many books that I read were new, so books that I bought in 2021, how many that I had already owned previously, and how many books I borrowed. And then the last thing I want to have an overview of is whether I read the books in paper form as an ebook or if I listen to them as an audiobook, because I just find it interesting to kind of be able to look back on that and see where the books that I read came from and also how many I read. And then on the bottom of the page on the right, I have done a little thing for the year in total, so that at the very end of 2021, which seems so far away, but will come at some point, I can then fill out the stats for the whole year. Then another spread that I did, because I like physical lists as a reminder of the books that I want to read, I did a list of all of the books that I currently have physically on my TBR at the start of 2021. And it's just a simple list, and I can kind of cross off the books if I have read them. And the goal, of course, would be that at some point I have read all of the books that I had already owned, because I don't want the books to sit on my TBR for forever. And then, kind of related to that, on the right-hand side, I did a little spread of books that I have bought in 2021, so that, again, I have an overview of how many books I actually buy, and I can also see how long I've owned books already. And then the last of my kind of yearly overview spreads, this is very YouTube focused, but I have done some lists of books that I want to keep in mind because they were part of a certain video. So for example, a while back I did a 5-star predictions video, and I want to do an update on that once I've read all of the books and kind of react to that and see if I actually gave the books 5 stars. So to make sure that I don't forget the books and don't forget to read the books, I have written down the list here. I've also done that for my winter reads, where I did a little TBR of books that I felt like I want to read this winter, and I've also written them down just to make sure that I can have a look at them if I feel in the mood for a winter read and see what past me thought I want to read. Then moving on, we actually already get to the monthly kind of spreads, and as you can see, this is my overview page for January, and as you probably know, I am doing a TBR game, so I have dedicated the first page to creating an overview of that game. So I'm writing down the cards that I picked and the prompts that it gave me, and then the books that I have picked for those prompts. And whenever I read them, I kind of colour in the card so that I know that I've read it. And then because this year I have also decided to implement a score system into my TBR game, I of course also somehow have to keep track of that score, and that is what you can see below the cards. So I always have an overview of the score that I achieve in my game. And then at the very bottom of this page I have basically just quickly repeated the 2021 intentions that you have seen at the beginning, because I want to kind of put them on every monthly page just to remind me of them, and then if I've read a book that fits that category, I cross it off, I write the book beneath it, and that's it already. And then on the page next to that I also have another simple overview. I know I have a lot of overviews of where I write down the books that I have read, but they all track kind of different things, and the things that I'm tracking here are what I will then put into my monthly stats. So again, I'm just quickly writing down the date and the title of the book that I've read, because I also like seeing them like in a monthly format. And then I also write down what format the book was in, where I got it from, and how many pages it had, so that at the end of the month I can add these up and put them in my stats. And then what I'm doing after this is I write down all of the books that I read and write down some thoughts on them. So this is the part that should actually help me get better at reviewing the books. Because, yeah, as I said, I write down the title of the books that I'm reading, and then either while I'm reading them or after I've read them, I sit down and I think about them for a while, and I jot down all of my thoughts that I had on them. I also sometimes put some quotes that I just really liked from the book and that I want to remember. I also put my little star rating up there, so that when I'm doing my wrap-up I can look back at these and have an idea of what I wanted to talk about them. And this system was definitely inspired by Books with Leo. I recently watched her reading journal video, and this is basically exactly what she's doing, and I thought this was so brilliant. I would highly recommend you go and watch her video if you haven't already. So yeah, this way of keeping track of my thoughts on the books that I read was completely inspired by her, and so far it's working really well for me, and I'm actually kind of excited of being able to look back on these and kind of see my thoughts on the books that I had right after I read them. And it's also come in really handy when I was filming my January wrap-up part 1. That should already be up, I think. So I will also link it if you want to see more of my thoughts on books and if it actually helped reviewing them. And that's actually already it. Those are the spreads, yearly and monthly, that I have done to help me keep track of my books. It's pretty minimal, but I really wanted to make them really easy to use so that I will actually keep up with them. And yeah, as I said, I so far found journaling really relaxing to do and also very helpful. But now I'll go back to actually reading some books instead of only talking about how I keep track of them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!